Brian heard Rubber Soul and decided that in his mind it was a front-to-back album, thematically like a Sinatra, Johnny Mathis, but in rock and roll they didn't have it front-to-back. And he started concocting the idea of an album like that, and it turned into being Pet Sounds.
I mean, we'll talk about Pet Sounds, but Good Vibrations.
Yes.
I love the story about Good Vibrations and how that was written.
Well, my cousin Brian did several different takes in different studios around town and spent a fortune in $60. But I somehow procrastinated and hadn't written the words yet. But because it wasn't really finished yet. So when the composite of the track was ready, we had the vocal session, and I had not written the words, and he's relying upon me, Brian is relying upon me to come up with that. So I dictated the lyrics to my then wife, Suzanne, who's mother of Haley and Christian, who's now singing with us and has been. And I said, I love the colorful clothes she wears and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. You know, that kind of thing. I was it's the 60s, 1966, and I was envisioning a girl who's all into peace and love and flower power. I mean, there was things like student unrest and Vietnam War and stuff going on. Yes, there was all that crap going on. But I wanted to portray this girl who was all about love, and just the vision of her is enough to give you...
That might have been Mike Love.
It gives you... just even knowing her...
We can trademark that.
Envisioning her gives you excitations.
Absolutely. And again, it's a song that it's just timeless. It gets in...
A psychologist in Sheffield said it was... He tested bunches of songs from the perspective of which songs make people feel the best. Good Vibrations came in at #1.
And I can imagine.
Yeah, which is... a tremendous honor. This was recently, like a year or so ago. So that's fantastic. The shelf life of Good Vibrations will never expire.
And Pet Sounds, I mean, it was so well received over here.
Yes.
People absolutely loved it in the UK.
Yes.
Didn't get the same response back home.
Let me speak to that for 1 second.
Please do.
Capitol Records decided, because they couldn't push the band more summer, and Pet Sounds is out. They worked on it barely 3 months, and then they put out the very best of the Beach Boys, Volume 1. Okay, are you into the Beach Boys? Who? Oh, yeah, we are. Anyway, I'm over here with 2 copies of Pet Sounds, and it wasn't released in England at all or Europe. And the Beatles show up in my hotel room, in my suite. I had a record player there, and they wanted to hear Pet Sounds. And I played it for them twice. So I was told they distilled the vibe of "Wouldn't It Be Nice" and our sound and our harmony into "Here, There, and Everywhere" in the Revolver album. But looking back, hindsight, I realized they were our total promotion team, spreading the word. And people, they started talking about the Beach Boys and Pet Sounds. It exploded in England and Europe. John B. from Pet Sounds went to #5, But thank you, John. Thank you, Paul.
And Paul said the Good Vibrations was like one of his favorite songs, or if not his favorite, or something. It was very generous in his appreciation and praise.
That's good to hear, because often you hear about the rivalry.
Well. There was a competition. There was a rivalry, yeah, but it made you want to do better.
You always want to be #1. You want to be top of the game.
Well, of course, and as an artist, you always hope that your song as you're releasing is going to be #1, but it isn't. But we did very well.
Brian heard Rubber Soul and decided that in his mind it was a front-to-back album, thematically like a Sinatra, Johnny Mathis, but in rock and roll they didn't have it front-to-back. And he started concocting the idea of an album like that, and it turned into being Pet Sounds.
And there were 2 groups. There was the Beach Boys recording group and the Beach Boys touring group. Brian retired from the touring group in late '64. Glenn Campbell came in for a few months until Bruce joined the group. So there were 2 groups, and Brian was absolutely in charge of the recording and production. And Carl, my cousin Carl, was the band leader. But I was into the live music thing and doing the lyrics if needed for Brian and so on. So it was like different divisions of the same, corporation.
And how was it for you when, being family,
Yes.
when Brian went through that tough time and decided that he could no longer perform?
Yeah, well, not everybody's comfortable touring so many days of the year. And he had the strong desire to go into the studio and focus on arranging and producing and recording and working with, and nobody was better as an individual than Brian with a group of great musicians. I mean, it was incredible to watch him. But, when he left, I mean, it was sad because he's your first cousin and nobody had a better falsetto than him. And Bruce was able to sing those parts, which was a great thing. But the problem that affected the groups the most, I think, later on that decade was the incursion of drugs, some people think that they need to get high and do whatever in order to be creative. But I've always thought that people are creative in spite of it. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But there was some, Brian became a recluse for a while, but I still got him to get, I went over to his house and we drove to the beach and we walked along the sand and then we came back and wrote Do It Again, which went to #1 in Great Britain.
Sure.
Yeah, in 1968.
It's the sound of the summer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We've got a few of them.
This is gold.